It begins not with a single event, but with a cascade of failures. A perfect storm of unresolved debt, political fragmentation, and external shock. The European Union does not explode, it fractures. This is a scenario built on existing fault lines, a realistic stress test of the most ambitious political and economic union in modern history. The trigger is less important than the systemic fragility it reveals. A sovereign debt crisis in a major economy, perhaps Italy, that the existing mechanisms cannot contain, or a profound political schism over defense, migration, or energy sovereignty that finally breaks the consensus model. The day after decision is announced. Phase 1. The immediate contagion. Financial markets are the first seismograph. The yield on bonds from the Eurozone's periphery spikes uncontrollably. The European Central Bank's mandate is stretched beyond its breaking point, unable to act as a unified lender of last resort amidst political chaos. Capital flight begins in earnest. Funds flow from southern Europe to perceived northern safe havens, primarily Germany. But this is not a contained problem. The integrated banking system, a pillar of the single market, seizes up. German and French banks, heavily exposed to debt across the Union, face catastrophic losses. Credit across the continent freezes. The euro experiences violent volatility, threatening its very existence as businesses can no longer price contracts or manage liabilities. Phase 2. The return of borders. The economic crisis triggers the political domino effect. National cabinets, facing panicked electorates, take unilateral action. The Schengen area of open borders is among the first casualties. France reinstates checkpoints on its frontier with Italy. Germany does the same on its Polish and Austrian borders. The stated reason: to control capital flight, to manage refugee flows, or to protect domestic employment. The result is the same. The physical movement of goods grinds to halt at newly manned frontiers. Just-in-time supply chains, especially in automotive and manufacturing, snap. A truck carrying components from Poland to a German factory is now stranded in a 30-kilometer queue. The single market, the EU's core economic achievement, ceases to function within days. Phase 3. The legal unraveling. With the political project in disarray, the legal edifice begins to crumble. The European Court of Justice's rulings are openly ignored by national governments. The foundational treaties are rendered void by a lack of collective will to enforce them. This creates a gray zone of profound uncertainty. What happens to EU citizens living in another member state? What is the status of cross-border pensions, patents, and professional qualifications? Billions of euros in contracts fall into legal limbo. The pain moves from the macroeconomic to the deeply personal. This is not a war, but it creates millions of casualties of administrative and legal collapse. The fracture is now complete. The central institutions in Brussels still exist, but they are powerless. The continent is now a patchwork of competing, anxious nation-states, navigating a new and dangerous landscape defined by 3 harsh realities. Reality 1, the power vacuum. The collapse of the EU creates the largest geopolitical vacuum since the end of the Soviet Union, and nature abhors a vacuum. Russia immediately moves to consolidate influence in Eastern Europe, leveraging energy dependencies and offering security guarantees to neutered states. The United States, facing an inward-focused and fragmented partner, begins a strategic pivot away from Europe, finding it an unreliable ally. China accelerates its economic divisions, striking bilateral deals for infrastructure and influence with individual European capitals, playing them against one another with ruthless efficiency. Europe ceases to be a global actor and becomes a theater for them. Reality 2. The cost of sovereignty. Individual nations reclaim formal sovereignty, but they quickly discover its severe limits in a 21st century world. A mid-size European country alone holds negligible bargaining power against multinational corporations, global tech giants, or assertive superpowers. The collective clout that enforced data privacy regulations, levied antitrust fines, and negotiated trade terms is gone. Each state is now a price taker, not a rule maker. The economic cost of fragmentation, duplicated regulations, competitive devaluations, trade barriers, leads to a sustained decline in living standards. The freedom of action is revealed to be largely the freedom to fail. Reality 3. The security dilemma. Without the overarching political framework of the EU and the integrated defense coordination it fostered, old suspicions resurface with alarming speed. Budget debates in one country are seen as security threats in another. Investments in national capabilities are interpreted as preparations for rivalry. The risk of miscalculation and escalation in a crisis increases exponentially. The continent that built a project to transcend its bloody history now faces the gradual, unmanaged re-emergence of that very history's dynamics. The final analysis is stark. The European Union's power was never the power of a single state. It was the power of collective resilience, of pooled sovereignty to achieve scale, and of a rules-based system that managed inevitable tensions. Its collapse would not lead to a new order of strong, independent nations. It would lead to a collective failure, a demonstration that in a world of giants and systemic challenges, fragmentation is a one-way path to irrelevance and vulnerability. The true lesson is that sustainability, the unglamorous work of maintaining complex unity, is a far greater form of power than the fleeting satisfaction of asserting a narrow sovereignty. The project was not about perfection, it was about survival. For more analysis that separates geopolitical reality from fiction, stay with the data at Think Cell.